Okay, so you want to own a streaming service. Build an app, buy some shows, charge people $10 or $15 a month, and let millions of subscribers pay you automatically while they binge from the couch. No theaters, no discs, no shipping. Just a red button, a library, and a credit card on file that renews every month whether the customer watches anything or not. It sounds like the perfect business. Here's the strange part. The most famous streaming companies on earth spent most of their lives losing staggering amounts of money on purpose. Not because they were failing, because losing billions was the plan. And once you understand why, every confusing thing that's happened to streaming, the price hikes, the password crackdowns, the ads nobody asked for, snaps into focus. By the end of this video, you'll know why a streaming service can add millions of subscribers and still bleed money. You'll know where the profit actually hides, because it was never really the monthly fee. And you'll know why the industry that promised to kill cable spent the last few years quietly rebuilding it. Streaming comes in 3 sizes, and they are 3 completely different businesses. The smallest is the niche service: anime, horror, one sport, old mysteries, a few million people who'd pay almost anything rather than lose the one thing they love. You aren't fighting for billion-dollar blockbusters. You're serving an audience everyone else ignores and charging a premium for being the only one who bothered. The middle tier is the studio spin-off, a company with a mountain of old films and shows packaged into its own app. Tens of millions of subscribers. This is where costs turn dangerous, because an old library gets people in the door but won't keep them. They finish what they came for, and if there's nothing new, they're gone. The top tier is the global giant. Hundreds of millions of subscribers across nearly every country, spending tens of billions a year on content. A single flagship series can cost hundreds of millions for one season. At this scale, it's less a media company than heavy industry, a machine whose only product is human attention. But the subscriber headline hides 2 costs that decide who lives and dies. The first is content, and it never stops. In a normal business, you build the thing once and sell it 1,000 times. Streaming is the opposite. Customers devour your catalog faster than you can refill it, and the moment the new stuff dries up, they cancel. So you're not buying a library, you're buying an obligation to produce fresh, expensive content forever just to keep the subscribers you already have. The catalog isn't an asset on a shelf, it's a fire, and it goes out the second you stop feeding it. The second cost is churn, the share of subscribers who quit each month, and it's the quiet assassin of this industry. Every cancellation is a tracked event. Each month, a slice of your audience walks, and if signups only just outpace the people leaving, you're sprinting at full speed to keep the number flat, spending billions to do it. Now the real question: where does the money come from? And this is the part that rewires how you see it. For most of streaming's life, the money didn't come from subscribers at all. It came from Wall Street. In the early years, nobody judged these companies on profit. They were judged on one number: subscriber growth, ad subscribers, and the stock soared, even while the company lost money on every one of them. Investors poured in billions of cheap dollars, betting that once the world was hooked, profits would eventually arrive. So the true product was never the shows. It was the growth chart sold to investors, funded by borrowed money, and burned on content to manufacture more growth. A service could spend $15 billion on content, lose money running the business, and still be crowned a triumph because it added 40 million subscribers. Your subscription wasn't paying for those shows. Investor cash was. You were almost a bystander in a war over a stock price, which is why streaming used to be an unbelievable deal for you. Huge libraries, no commercials, low prices, endless new shows. You were subsidized by billions in investor money, all racing to grab your attention before a rival did. It was the best bargain in entertainment history, and it was impossible to sustain, because eventually the money stops. When interest rates climbed and cheap financing dried up, Wall Street reversed overnight. The same investors who worshipped subscriber growth suddenly demanded the one thing streaming had dodged for a decade: profit. Not someday, this quarter. And that single reversal explains almost everything you've felt as a viewer since. Every irritating change was a direct answer to that demand. The first lever was price. Every major service raised fees, often more than once a year. The cheap launch price that reeled you in was never the real number. It was bait, like a casino's free drink. Once your favorite shows lived in that app, once it was the default button under your thumb. They raised the price and bet you were too embedded to leave. Most people were. The second lever was password sharing. For years, the companies looked the other way, because shared logins hooked more households and grew the sacred subscriber count. But the instant profit became the goal. Every freeloader became a target, so they started charging for extra households and blocking shared access, converting millions of freeloaders into paying subscribers or losing them. Either way, revenue moved the right direction. The third lever betrayed the original promise entirely: ads. Freedom from commercials was the whole pitch. Then, under pressure for profit, every service rolled out cheaper, ad-supported plans. And here's the twist that gives away the game. The ad tier often earns more per user than the ad-free one. A subscriber on the cheap plan pays a small fee and generates ad revenue on top. And advertisers pay well for a captive viewer who can't skip. The budget option quietly became the profit engine. They didn't bring back ads to do you a favor. They brought them back because your attention is worth more than your money. So here's the model in one sentence. Spend billions of investor dollars to trap a global audience. While the product is cheap and generous, then, once they can't easily leave, quietly make the deal worse. Higher prices, no more free riders, and the ads you were promised had died. It's less a video business than a decade-long bait-and-switch run at planetary scale. So, with hundreds of millions of subscribers and all these levers, why is streaming still such a punishing business? Two forces crush it at once. The first is fragmentation. At the start, one service had almost everything at a fraction of cable's price. Then every studio realized it was insane to rent its best shows to a rival, clawed the content back, and launched its own app. Now, the shows you want are scattered across 8 services, each with its own bill. Subscribe to them all and you pay more than cable ever cost. The very monster streaming swore to slay. So viewers started signing up for 1 month, binging one show, and canceling. Churn and return turns a stable subscription into a revolving door. The second force is the content trap. Because subscribers bolt the moment the new shows run dry, spending can never pause. You can't slash content costs to juice profit without triggering cancellations, which drops revenue. The opposite of what Wall Street ordered. Spend too much and you bleed cash. Spend too little and you bleed subscribers. The margin between is razor thin, and a couple of expensive flops can torch an entire year. Step back, because the paradox is real. A streaming service owns the most elegant revenue mechanism ever devised. Recurring, automatic, worldwide, with almost zero cost to serve one more person once the content exists. And yet, these companies lost money for a decade, and even now, outside the 1 or 2 true giants, most barely break even. Why? Because the product has to be rebuilt at enormous expense. Forever. A toll road doesn't need a fresh hit series to keep cars rolling. But a streaming service that stops making content is watching its subscribers leave in real time. The revenue is dependable. The cost of holding it is not. 2 scenarios. The niche service, a few million devoted subscribers, paying $6 or $7 a month for the one category they can't live without. Content costs stay contained. Churn stays low because there's no substitute, and in a good year, it's reliably profitable, precisely because it never tried to be everything to everyone. It dug a moat and stayed inside it. The global giant. Hundreds of millions of subscribers, tens of billions in content spend, nearly everywhere on Earth. When it works, the scale is almost incomprehensible. One more subscriber costs essentially nothing. So once the content is paid for, each sign-up is nearly pure profit. That's the dream. And for the 1 or 2 who reached global scale first, it finally came true. But that same giant launched late or bleeding subscribers to churn becomes a furnace. Same content, same app. The only difference between minting billions and incinerating them is whether you got big enough, fast enough, before the investor money vanished. Most did not. And today they're merging gutting catalogs or hunting for an exit, which is why every serious operator obsesses over 2 numbers: churn and revenue per user. Subscriber count was the vanity metric that hypnotized everyone for a decade. How long a person stays and how much you extract while they're there is what actually decides survival. So that's the real economics of owning a streaming service. It was never about shows. It's about capturing an audience with borrowed money while the product is cheap and generous. And then, once they're locked in, patiently making the deal worse, raising the price, evicting the free riders, and bringing back the exact commercials you were promised had died. Build it right. Reach global scale before the money runs dry, and you own one of the most powerful recurring revenue machines ever created. Build it late, or chase an audience that cancels the second the finale drops. And you'll learn why the streaming dream curdled into a bloodbath, and why the industry that vowed to free you from cable spent its recent years rebuilding cable, one price hike and one ad break at a time.